All right, we're getting up and running. So, again, happy Tuesday. This is our ConnectWise Tuesday for Sell. So we'll be focusing on Sell. Oh, Liz, can you hear okay? Can everybody hear me okay? I guess we should start there. Okay, yes, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Excellent. So as far as Sell is concerned, I can answer questions about Manage. If you have questions about Manage, even though we're here for Sell today, feel free to ask any questions you have around Manage as well. What I cannot answer questions on are questions around Automate. It is just not my forte. That's definitely what we need Will for. So we'll start off with, before I dive in, are there any specific questions that you guys came here in hopes to learn and know about? And while I wait for you guys to throw some, either chat in the chat box, unmute yourself on the mic, feel free to join in conversation, or throw something in the Q&A box. For those of you that have never joined us in ConnectWise Tuesday before, my name is Rose with Baring McKinley. We are a management consulting firm. We do a lot of work with ConnectWise, doing their assisting in their Advantage program for implementations around Sell, Manage, Automate. And then we also do a variety of consulting opportunities with the financial health of the business, inserting processes, just kind of helping get the ship in tip-top shape, or as Josh, our CEO, likes to say, really help building the kitchen and giving you guys the tools that you need to be successful in your businesses. So we have been doing ConnectWise Tuesday for about a year, a little over a year now. And we started off with just Manage, and we have evolved from Manage to Manage, Sell, and Automate. And so the first Tuesday of every month revolves around Manage. The second Tuesday of the month revolves around Automate. The third Tuesday of the month revolves around Sell, which is where we're at today. And then the fourth Tuesday of the month is an industry spotlight that Will hosts that usually has a guest speaker to talk about kind of either new and upcoming product that's in the industry that might be beneficial for your environments, or something that he has a lot of knowledge and experience with that he highly recommends. So we like to just kind of present those options and opportunities to everybody to just kind of get some additional knowledge out there. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to be here with us today. I don't see any questions yet. So what I'm planning on doing is actually going more into the some advanced settings of Sell, and this is really going to be premised around those of the partners here that have Sell premium licensing. So if you have Sell Premium, you'll be able to use this functionality. If you do not have Sell Premium and you're on Sell Standard or Sell Basic, this will not necessarily apply to your current license level, but if it's a feature and functionality that you're interested in, that you would like to use, you can always upgrade. Just reach out to your account manager at ConnectWise. So the feature is actually around terms, which are not terms in I'm going to say the word term. There's a lot of word terms. Not in the way of we think with like 12 months, 36 month type terms or payment terms. These are terms in the way of I'm either, I'm billing you on a recurrence, or I'm putting you on a payment plan, or I need a down payment. That kind of information, how we can build that. In addition to building that, how we can actually use that in a quoting environment, what that looks like when it's published into Order Porter. Can I see in Sell which license level of Sell we have? Absolutely, Dana. Generally, it is going to be in the bottom left corner of your screen by the settings. It'll say below the settings gear icon, it should say either premium or standard, or basic if you're on basic as well. So I'm actually going to do a screen share for you guys. When will Sell be enforcing the SSO login? Chip, that is a really great question, and that I don't have the information to. My recommendation is that if you have SSO in place already, to just go ahead and get it turned on. We don't know when they're going to strongly enforce all product suites to be on the SSO. They haven't given us insight on that. However, it's a really simple turn-on feature to use. And I can actually, it'll take just a couple minutes, I can show you where you would do that at as well. Good questions. All right, so I am going to do a screen share. All right, so we should all be able to see my cell. Can you guys see my cell? And I am going to pull up the chat box here so that I can see that. Okay. All right. So you asked about SSO, just so you know. So first and foremost, this here, Dana, is where you would see your license level to let you know what license level you are in. I do have to be a little precautious as we navigate through this because I am using our live, our production cell. We have an NFR sandbox that we usually use to do our webinars with. However, that is not a premium licensed software. So I had to use our production. So I do have to be a little bit careful in navigating through. So I ask you to bear with me through that. But if we just come here to the settings, and I'm going to go ahead and just open that in a new tab. I'll show you where the SSO portion lives. So if I come over to my, I believe it's my organization setup and company. Oh, and company, I always do that. And then right down here, you have your auth setup. So this setup right here is actually, it's just as simple as selecting ConnectWise SSO and then register with ConnectWise SSO. So if I click this box here, it's going to ask me for a token. And if you've set up SSO for Manage already, you'll be very familiar with, which is now Home, ConnectWise Home, the settings that allow you to create that token. And you would just copy and paste that token in, and then you would select the users or the members that have access to Sell that would be registered under the SSO. So I hope that helps, Chip. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel here, and I'm going to close that. Okay, so where I'm at right now is in editing of templates, okay? So with the templates, if you don't know how to get there, there's a couple of different ways. One, you can navigate and click the plus sign for a new quote, and I'll actually show you what that looks like if we just go plus, new quote. And I'm just opening a new tab so as not to lose our place on this page. You have a little button right here in the top right. If you click edit, that'll give you the ability to edit any of these. The other way that you can do it is navigating through the settings module and then going into quote preparation and edit quote templates. So when you are creating terms for the first time, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're doing it in the template. It's required at the template level in order to be able to create them. You have to start there. So if you have access to terms, you will have this terms and recurring tab right here inside your template. If you don't have that, it means that you're probably not on a premium licensed software. So that's why you don't see it. Now, you don't need to set terms and recurring for each and every one of your templates. If you have templates that you don't want to use terms and recurring with, that's perfectly okay. And each one, just like anything else in the templates in Sell, is on a case-by-case basis. So this is going to be very specific to this template, okay? To create a new term, you start with, you have a blank screen like this, you would click plus term option. So if I click that, This is going to give me the ability to give it a name, and then I have groups here. So I can use term options as the group, which is the default that Sell gives us, or if I want to call it something different, I can. I can have a multitude of terms on a single quote. Really depends on what we're quoting and what's included in that and how many terms we have revolving around that. Some examples where we might see some different terms is, let's say, for instance, I have hardware that I want to sell, and I have recurring services that I want to sell as well. I may have a term for my hardware that says I want a deposit, and then the remainder is due, at installation. And then I may have a term for my recurring because I want them to see that recurrence. So I would have several different kinds of terms, and that's where this option name comes from. So if I wanted to do, let's say, a deposit, I would have an option of a deposit. And then I could put all of those optional terms within that. So you can get really, really granular and in-depth with terms. The gotcha to that, though, is sometimes we can become so granular and in-depth with the terms that we create a lot of confusion in our proposals. So I do say, as you're working with terms, start kind of playing a little bit with them, and then do some tests and see what it looks like. And if traditionally when you deliver your proposals, you're delivering them in person, or, as everybody is, under quarantine or shelter in place right now, you're delivering them via a webinar, and you can explain what all of those terms mean, then you're good. If not, and traditionally you just send it out through the email and let them kind of figure it out through Order Porter, you're going to want to make sure that whatever you have on there and represented on the quote is actually easy to understand. So they can get pretty in-depth pretty quickly, and then it can create some confusion for the prospect or the client if you have too many of them on there, okay? So I'm going to start with, first and foremost, actually, before we go into terms, I forgot I need a hardware tab on here. So I'm going to come to this prepare content. We don't do hardware here at Barry McKinley, so it's not part of what we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the plus sign, and I am going to grab my hardware tab. Finished. Move this over. Okay, so my hardware tab is going to be my one-time tab. My consulting hours is, that's also a one-time tab. So we're going to do a recurrence on here for an agreement purposes. Let's go monthly services. Finished. I'm going to move this over. I'll get rid of the consulting hours, delete that. Okay, so we have our hardware and we have our monthly services, both for our recurring purposes, okay? One time and recurring. So if I come back to my terms and recurring, one of the more popular terms that we see is, just as I had mentioned earlier, deposit, right? So what we would do here, deposits are handled a little bit differently in the terms section and how we want those to represent. So I'm going to change this, and I am going to call this my deposit terms. And I'm going to create a new group for it. Actually, I'm going to give this a name, let's say 50% deposit. And I'm going to give it a group name, down payment. Oh, I like down payment better than deposit. My brain's not firing on all cylinders, I'm sorry. This is printed is selected. When you create terms, you can have, if you want to give them options, you can represent options. Like I might do a 25% deposit, a 50% deposit, and no deposit, if maybe depending on the client, it's fitting, right? So if I want to do that, is printed means that I want this particular term option to show up on my proposal. Even if there's nothing selected, I want them to see that there's a term option for it. Is selected says, I want this selected by default on the proposal as well. So if there are any special terms and conditions in accordance with this, I can put those in here as well. or I can leave that blank. And traditionally, I leave that blank because it doesn't necessarily print up nicely on Order Porter. It will show on your proposal, but it won't show up on Order Porter. So you can leave those blank, or you can put in specific terms and conditions on this. Here we can say 50% down payment due at signature, 50% remaining balance due upon completion. Okay. Well, I guess that means I have to have a services tab too, huh? I'll come back and add that. So with this, I have the option to filter, and this might be default like condensed. So you can expand that if it's condensed in your cell. And your tab group filter is if you had any particular, if you had your tabs listed in groups, you could grab it and say, these are one time. That's where you'll see the tab group as an option as you as you're playing around with your edit tab settings inside a cell. So if you're not familiar with those, we can definitely have a call around understanding those as well. However, we don't have any groups that we use in cells, so we don't have any groups to grab here. Otherwise, I could just easily grab them. Otherwise, I can say I want to either create a filter to include specific tabs or to exclude specific tabs. And the reason that we have these options here is that if I have 90% of my quote I'm not allowing terms on, and I have a very specific tab, maybe it's a large project that I'm doing and the rest of it has like managed services and installation, and I don't want those included, I can say just include that one tab I want it. Or if the bulk of my quote should have terms and I have one tab that should not have terms, I can just easily exclude that one. So in my case, I only have a couple of tabs, so it doesn't matter which one I take. I have a tendency to say specifically what I want it to include. So I'm going to say that I want it to include my hardware, okay? Because that's going to be all my one-time revenue coming in. And then use is totals and is optional, doesn't work with filter tabs. So it's just saying that you can click this and it's going to say uses totals and is optional. So if they select it, it's going to be included in the totals. If they select it, it's going to be listed as optional if you have options in there. So it's kind of that same behavior that you get when you're using optionality on your tabs and on your quotes. But this is also saying that it doesn't work with the tab filters, which is actually what we're using here, are tab filters, so we're going to uncheck that box. But if we weren't using this and we were doing it and applying it to the whole quote or the whole proposal, we could check that box. So this is what you might see where it says show less. You might see this right here. And if you haven't worked in term options before, it more than likely is actually condensed. So now we're going to come down to our finance section. So here's where ConnectWise gets a little bit different and unique in how it operates. So if you are doing a 50% deposit and 50% due upon signing, and as in our example, we would actually come here and we would say our periods are 1, our full payment percentage is actually 50%, and our principal discount is 50%. If we were doing, let's say, a 25% deposit, our full payment would be 25, and our principal discount would be 75. So we have to tell the system for this down payment how we want it to show that revenue required. And so it's looking for that in the terms of full payment, which is always what makes things a little bit unique. I know that we have this down payment over here. These are financing terms. The problem with this here is that it doesn't necessarily give you the selectable options, which also shows balance due at the end. So ConnectWise actually recommends that if you're going to do something specific to down payment and you want that to be seen as a separate entity, you would put your 25% full, 75% discount, and that'll basically say if the revenue is $1,000, I'm asking for $250 that's your 25% for full payment, and it's going to not see the other $750, which then lends us to the question that says, well, how do I get it to show the rest of the revenue due? And that is where we use the second option, and generally we would put that in its own group. And the reason that we put it in its own group is because if I put it into this down payment group here that we just created, it's going to show it as optional. So you can optionally pay this or optionally pay that. So in its own group, it gets its own heading, and we can tell it is printed as selected. So I'm going to grab this and just put this back to 50, 50. Are you guys all following along okay with this? Term options can be super confusing. If it was a lease, we could mark that it was a lease. This is more specific if you're using Great American Leasing. Your terms with Great American Leasing are really great. You can build that out if you have that integration in here, and it pulls the information right in. It's a really beautiful function. And there is nothing here that we have to do on the recurring side because we are not working with a recurring tab. We're working only with a one-time tab, okay? If you have a payment processor associated to your system, you can tell it that you want to collect this term as a payment on order porter and how you want it to collect that, okay? For this particular one right here, our one time, we would only use these boxes. And if I drop this down, you'll see here that I can do it now, I can override, I can do it next Monday, first of the month, several days out, or several months out, right? For our recurring, when we get to that point, I could use this section here, all right? So we are going to go ahead and we are going to save this. And right now it's not going to plug any numbers in because we don't have anything in the system yet. But you'll see that when I go and I create a quote with this template when we're done. The next term that we are going to use here is to get the rest of that 50%. So I'm going to click the plus options again. And I'll say balance remaining. And I'm going to create a new group again. I'll just call it balance. And this one is also going to be is printed and is selected. Following the same process that we went through for the deposit, we're going to do the same thing here, 50 and 50. And again, if I wasn't doing a 50% deposit and I was just doing a 25% deposit, then this would actually be 75 and 25. So the reverse of the deposit that we'd initially put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. Oh, I forgot because I had this condensed, I got to put my filter in. So I want this only to be applied to my hardware tab and hit save. Okay. Additionally, we are going to tell this proposal that we're going to have some recurring revenue on it. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and start creating that recurring revenue so that we can understand it. So let's just say in our recurring revenue that we are doing a managed services agreement for 12 months, right? So we're going to do another term option and we're going to say 12 months. And I'm going to create a new group and I'm going to call this managed services terms. Is printed, is selected. I'll do is printed, but not is selected. And this one, I'm going to create a filter only to include my monthly services. This is where I can use my recurring payment section. So here, I would say my monthly recurring cycle, or not my monthly recurring cycle, but just my recurring cycle is monthly, okay? And then that's all I have to do there, except now how many periods are there? 12. Now, if I want to give a discount, like let's say that we have a 3-year agreement, and if you sign on a 3-year agreement, we give you a 3% discount. I could apply that here, and that would automatically apply and reflect that information in my terms. The opportunity adjustment line allows it to make that adjustment inside of the opportunity. Force this term to be included in the forecast. We absolutely want the forecast to see that revenue, and force this term to be excluded in the opportunity forecast. Well, I want it included. This is where we can also say when this converts to an agreement, what kind of agreement is it going to be? So I'm going to just drop this down, and I am going to say a direct consulting agreement, and then I want it to start the first of the next month. Okay, so you can make those adjustments so that this way when you do convert, the system knows what it's doing with it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit save here. And with our recurring contracts, that's oftentimes where we see that we have a multitude of options, right? Generally, we want to give them the 1, 3, and 5 year. So if I'm going to do a 1, 3, and 5 year, I can use the same group. I'm going to click the plus sign. And I'm going to call this 36 months. Or, you know, we'll just do 3 year. And I'll probably change my 12 months to 3 years so that we have continuity. And I'm going to call this managed services terms is printed. And I'm going to say I want them to select the 3 year. And then again, I would come here and I would say that it's monthly. And its recurring periods now are 36. That's how many months we're going to be charging them for. And we want the opportunity adjustment line. We want to force this item. And we are going to say that we want the 3% discount applied to whatever revenue is coming from that if they select this one. So I'm going to hit save. Oh, I keep forgetting my filtering. I apologize, guys. Create filter, including tabs. And we are going to go with monthly services and save. Any questions so far as we're going through this? By all means, don't be shy, chime in, throw your questions in the box if you don't want to open up the mic and talk, and I've got no problem answering those as we go. Okay, so now we have just some basic terms. How they are listed here is how they will list out in that order on your proposal. So if I wanted my managed services terms to show first, I would just grab it and move it up, and now it's at the top, and then my down payment and my balance remaining. I prefer to do the one time and then the recurring. It's personal preference. You guys will find what your personal preference is, and you can make those adjustments. So just know that if you're thinking about it and putting them in and you're not really thinking about the order that they're in, and you look at the proposal and you're like, not really feeling this, that's okay. You can definitely rearrange those so that visually that they are presenting the way that you want them to. Okay, so we have our template terms created. We are now going to create a new quote. And if you notice, I don't have to save anything. As I save my terms, it's saving within the template. So I'm just going to open my link in a new tab for a new quote. And I am going to select our ConnectWise Tuesday quote and use our testing company. And I'll attach it to our main location. And I have to rename it. And I'm going to hit save here. Now, one thing about when you have terms enabled, if you drop down this more, you'll see here one of your options is edit terms. So while there may not have been terms initially, you now have terms that you can edit. So if I click edit terms, it will actually let me come into the terms that we've created, okay? And this is not at the template level, this is at the quote level. So I can set up the template with the things that I want. Now that edit terms traditionally is more of an admin setting. So you don't have to worry about your reps and persons being able to go in and edit them unless you give them permission to do so, okay? So we're going to come here into our prepare content. And I'm going to just throw some fake SKUs in here. And I'll throw a revenue figure of, let's say, 8,000 in there. I don't know how far off I am. It's been a long time since I've done anything with any kind of hardware. So I apologize if that's not realistic. I am also going to come into my monthly services, and I'm going to say CW Tuesday, recurring. And let's say we have 25 at, let's say $100 each. And so then we have our $2,500. Now this here, we have a term options tab. And this term options tab is not innately available by ConnectWise. However, you can turn that on. It's really simple. You just have to rename any tab term options. So if I come here and I say I've got the About Us, finished, and I rename this tab to term options, and it has to be exactly as I'm doing it here, capital T, capital O, and then you have to have the S at the end. I always forget the S, and I'm like, why isn't this working? If you do that, what that's going to do is it's going to show you here all of the terms that you have available. And this is a facing tab that you can use internally, that if you wanted to give your sales reps the opportunity to select terms, it doesn't let them add in, but they can like select and deselect terms this way. That gives them a little bit more flexibility in that without having to go into that edit terms section that I showed you in the more drop down. Let me delete this tab because we don't need it twice. So you can see here, just by looking at our terms and what we have, is that is printed. We have what do we got? 12 periods, okay, for $30,000 in recurring, and it's going to be $2,500 per period, okay? And for managed services 3 years, we have 36 months. We have $2,425 for a total recurring of $87,000. And what you'll note here is this is where it's taken off that 3%. All right. So now we are going to go ahead and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. One of the downfalls to working from home is when somebody arrives, the dog barks. If you hear the barking dog, I'm super sorry. All right. Any of you that have pets or kids at home right now, I'm sure you understand you're probably in a similar boat. So we're going to leave all of this just as is, and we're going to take this and we're going to publish and deliver so that you guys can see what that looks and feels like from the actual end user client perspective, okay? So let me just publish this. And it seems to be taking a moment. It's a good time. If you guys have any questions, are you guys following along okay? Is this all making sense for you? This doesn't usually take this long. My apologies. I'm going to try that again. I don't know why it's taking so long. Publish. Here we go. Okay. So if I click the PDF, and just so that we can see the PDF version first. This is our baseline proposal of what we use. So here's where it's got all of the descriptions in here. Okay. Ours are recurring totals. I'm not sure where that new term option came from. I have to figure out where that's coming from because that doesn't belong there. That would not normally show on your proposals. And then we have here the payment options, okay? So here's our down payment and our balance. And why didn't those show up? Could be the form that I'm in as well, so I apologize. Balance remaining one time 4,000. Where's my down payment? Is it not selected? Is printed, is selected, 4,000. Is printed, is selected, 4,000. Okay, so our terms look good. I don't know why that didn't print up. We'll have to look at that. And then our managed services here are our 12 and our 36 months where we can see those discounts. Here's our summary of the selected. Down payment 50%, and for some reason that amount's not coming through. I have to take a look at why, but that should look exactly like we see here with that balance. Here's where I mentioned that your term, the terms and conditions that you associate with your particular goodness, my mind drew blank, I'm sorry. So that 50%, like that terms and conditions that you put with the actual term, it will show up with the term, okay? So here on the proposal, it says 50% due at signing, 50% remaining balance due upon completion. I gotta figure out, that's gonna kill me why that value is not showing. And then we have the 4,000 here. Here's our managed services terms for 3 years. And the reason that it's showing 3 years is because we said that's the one that's selected. So by default, it's grabbing that. So it looks a little bit different on the proposal. Now, if we come over here, back to, where did my, oh, I came out of it. Sorry, guys. Now I got to publish and deliver again. Hopefully it doesn't take very long. There we go. That didn't take too long. Okay, so my down payment still didn't come in, which I got to take a look at that. So we're going to troubleshoot that together. But as you can see here, I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here for you guys. Okay, so as you can see here is our 8,000 one time. Our monthly services subtotal is 2,500. We drop these down. This kind of shows you what everything is, right? And then I'm not sure where this term options is coming from either, so we'll have to take a look at that. And I took like an old template that I was playing with before when we first started initiating these things internally, so it's possible that it was attached to that. So here's our one time, and then here's our managed services. So this is what is selected will do. It's the same thing as when you're working with optionality inside of your quotes, right? So show of hands, how many of you guys use optionality today? So if you're not using optionality, I highly, highly recommend it. And if you need some help with it, you can get 30 minutes with me. I'm happy to take 30 minutes, kind of show you a little bit about optionality. On our YouTube channel, we do also have information around optionality. I did my very first Connect Wise Tuesday for Sell was all about optionality. So if you go to our YouTube channel, and actually I'll throw that here in the chat for you guys. that link so that if you guys want to, you can head over there. You'll be able to find it in there. It was in January. Let's see here. Put it into the chat to attendees. Okay, so I just put our YouTube channel there. Feel free if you need to learn more, you want to learn more about optionality, and you can always ping me, rose@barrymckinley.com, and I'm happy to assist you and kind of feeling your way around optionality. All right, so here's where I can select. I can say I want 12 months, update options, and we'll be able to see that all update appropriately, or I can say that I want 3 years and do the same. So even though we said we want it selected, excuse me, even though we said we want it selected, they can choose something different because we're giving them the choice there. And I was wrong. Your terms and conditions will print up. It just won't print up along with the term and condition. It'll come down here by the signature on order porters. So definitely use those if there's value there for you guys in that. So let's take a look and see what's going on inside our quote that is providing us a little bit of issues here. I'm going to come to my quote setup, and I am going to edit my terms. And let's see. Down payment associated to hardware. One time, one period, 50%. Let's just uncheck the spread fee. And save. Balance remaining. And that looks good. And then those we know are good as well. All right, let's see if we have a tab in here that's causing some hiccup. I don't know where that term tab was coming from. Let's make sure this is not as printed. Maybe that's where that's coming from. So let's take that out and hit save. And let's try to publish and deliver. Let's see if we can correct some little hiccups that were coming through. And this is why it's always good to double check it. In terms, like I said, they get a little wonky. And you guys can see just from the PDF version itself, if you're just delivering it and you're looking at the proposal, it can get really confusing on their end. Okay, good. So that term box is gone. We're not seeing that here. Here it is. Oh, this is so much prettier. Okay. So this is now going to show us what that 50% deposit is. That spread fee was checked. I must have checked that inadvertently. So one-time payment of $4,000. Spread fee is like if you have fees that you want spread over a period of time, like for leases or interest, things like that. That's how you can use spread fee. Balance remaining, and then our selected terms. And then here's like the explanation of them based off of what was pre-selected ahead of time. So again, that 3-year term is what we pre-selected. So now if we come back in here and we click our order porter, we can take a look at our order porter as well. And now we just only have those 2 drop-down fields. I don't know where my monthly description went. I don't think I gave it a monthly description. All right, and then here's our subtotal for $8,000 and our monthly subtotal of $2,500 with our 50% deposit, our balance remaining, and our terms. So if I update options, This shows us how much is due, and the total number of recurring payments is always really nice because it shows them the value of their contract. Now, some people like it, some people love it, some people hate it. So this is something that works within. What's nice about all of this, though, is that you do have the ability to convert out of sell into manage. We can't do that here today just because it is part of our production. But if you don't have this turned on, I'll show you really quick. If you go to settings, and you go to your, I believe it's your CRM integration, opportunity settings, opportunity setup. Convert opportunities right here. This enables what you want it to do by default. So if by default you convert everything to a sales order first, then you would have that box checked. If you don't convert anything by default, leave them all unchecked. What you really need is this enable opportunity conversion and win tab. So what that ultimately looks like is if we hit save here, and we go into our existing quote, and I come to our quote setup and I manually win this, you'll see here I have update opportunity and convert opportunity. Now, convert opportunity is grayed out because I haven't created an opportunity, so I will go ahead and I'll update the opportunity. Oh, you know what? I can't update the opportunity. Stephanie will kill me if I do because this will create items in my production. So if I could show you, I would show you the conversion process. But basically, what happens is when you go through the conversion from here, if you're not familiar with it, you actually get like 4 like swim lane style columns: one for sales order, one's for service ticket, one for project, and one for agreement. And then you can convert to that agreement for the agreement class products based off of the term that you created. And that's why we put in and selected what kind of agreement it was, so it can bring all of that over. It is hit or miss on whether or not there's a recommendation to do the conversion directly out of sell. It really is dependent upon your internal process. So if you're a smaller shop and the same person that is doing the quoting is also the same person that would be responsible for kind of the handoff / conversion process, then there's no harm, no foul. It saves some steps and creates some levels of efficiency. However, if you are a larger shop and you have sales professionals and inside sales reps, account managers inside of sell doing the quoting, but it's their responsibility to hand it off to an operations manager, project manager, service manager, et cetera, accounting, finance. And then their job is to do that conversion to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. You're not going to want to do converting out of sell, because then we are going to inadvertently be converting things that should not be converted until they were properly handed off. And that's how we can create a mess in our system and try and circumvent process. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. So that is how we use our terms and conditions, our term options. Any questions on that? Is there anything that I can answer for you? Concerns? Want to get a deeper look at? We have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to give you guys a moment here to type out whatever questions you may have. Okay, you guys are all so quiet today. I hope that this really was beneficial and helpful. If you go over term setup again real quick. Yeah, Todd, absolutely. In terms of like how to actually create the term. So if we go back to our, did I override one of them? I did. So I come back to my settings. Absolutely. So when we are creating our terms, we're creating our terms on the template, so it's associated to the template that we're using it for, okay? And we are going to come in here and we are going to go to quote preparation, and I'm going to edit quote template. And I'm going to go into my template for this. Okay. And then there's this link right up top here for terms and recurring. So this is what you're going to click inside your template so that you can create the terms that you need for it. So when you are creating a term, you're going to simply click the plus sign here, and it's going to bring up a box that looks just like this. Now, if you have options already created, like I did for this template, they're going to show, or I can create a whole new group just by saying create new group. And those groups, as we saw, if we come back here to reflect on our quote, oh, I don't think that I can. Hold on, I'm going to pause the share for just a moment because, again, like I said, we're in our production environment and I have to go back to my quotes screen, so bear with me one moment. I'm just going to pause this. Quotes. Okay, and now I'll start share again. Okay, so if I come back in to my quote and I take a look at, just open up the PDF version here. And we look at, I open that up in the big screen. These gray boxes here, okay, that is the same thing as, where did it go? Oh, here's my edit template right here. That is what these groups are, okay? So when it's just a single option that you're putting in there, like deposit, down payment type of deal, just a simple, down payment title. And then if you're giving options, that's where you would actually create a unique name like I did here, 50% down payment. So if we come back and we look at our PDF, that's not our PDF. The group is down payment. The term is 50% down payment. And where we see this make a real big difference is here where I didn't change that to 1 year, is this to be 1 year, 3-year option. It's under the managed services group, if that makes a little bit more sense. So what you would do is you would go ahead, you would click the plus sign, and we're going to just call this near-term option, testing option. We'll create a new group. We'll call it the test group. And again, is printed, is selected, is what's showing it up on, actually printing it out on the quote itself, on the proposal itself. Let's say, for instance, in this particular quote that we were doing, I did not, let me take it out of a 1 status. Let's say in this particular one, I did not want to propose the 50% option. I would just come into my prepare content, and under my term options tab here, I could just unselect is printed, and now those will no longer show up, and the only term that's going to show up is for my managed services. So if I refresh this, ConnectWise just loves to make a liar out of me. It shouldn't show up in our proposal. I'm surprised that it still did. It could be too that we have it selected. Yep, hold on one moment. This is where we need that more tab. Oh, cancel. Quote setup, more, edit terms. So it is printed. I just have to uncheck the is selected. And uncheck the is selected. And I can come back to prepare content. And refresh. So now the only thing that shows up there is our managed service option, okay? So that's what's being controlled right here, okay? So we have our group, we say is printed, is selected. Then we have our filters. And again, our filters are used to tell the system what tabs to calculate the product off of. So if I said to leave no filters, then I can say use as totals and optional, and it's going to take everything. So if I created this and I said that I want, for full payment percentage, I want 75%. I hit enter, so it automatically saved. I apologize, that was not my intent. With a 25%. And then on the recurring, I'm going to say monthly for 6 periods. I want this to be an opportunity adjustment line and included in my forecast. And I'm going to go ahead and go with my direct consulting based on the first of the next month or whatever your preference is, and then I'm going to hit save. Okay. Now, this is automatically going to apply, because we did it on the template, to any quote that you have in place. So we created it here. We didn't have to do anything else with it, okay? So if I come back to my quote, and I would have created a new quote from this template, all of those settings would already be in here. Now, I don't think that this is going to carry over to this one because this quote was done on the template previously, but I can edit and match those in this edit terms option here, okay? So as we know with anything that we do with our quotes, with our templates in Sell, they don't carry forward, they only go on for, or they don't carry backwards, right? Only new quotes moving forward. So as you can see, these options are still here. My new one doesn't exist, but I can copy term options. And I can say that I want to copy it. Where is my template? Their copy term options get a little weird, but I should be able to copy it from my template. Quote setup, more, edit terms. It doesn't look like it's going to cooperate with me. And unfortunately, I can't scroll through just because, again, client-facing things, we have to protect the privacy of our clients. So again, we'll just really quick call this testing option with a new group of testing, is printed, is selected, no filters, 75%, 25%, and monthly for 6 months, opportunity, direct consulting, and the first of the month, and I hit save. So now this is going to apply directly just to this quote, not to the actual template, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and publish and deliver this. And publish. Yes, I do wish. It's just letting me know that was actually in a one state. So go to my order porter. Okay, and so now because I applied this to the entirety of the quote, not just the individualized, what you'll see here is testing option. I've got 6 monthly payments of $2,500 a month. That's coming from here. And I have one-time fee of $6,000 a month, which is coming from here because I said 75% as opposed to 100%. Todd, these are recorded, so this will be posted up. You can go to our Facebook as well as it'll get moved over to our YouTube channel as well if you want to revisit it. And you're always welcome to reach out to me if you have some additional questions. I am happy to help and guide through that process. But I do appreciate you guys being here today. Next Tuesday is our industry spotlight. So feel free to join Will for that, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks on Connect Wise Manage. Have a wonderful week, folks.